The council chamber, shaped like an inverted cone of obsidian and light, echoed with arrogance. Delegates from over 100 star systems leaned back in their grav chairs, their voices thick with disdain. Humans? Scoffed Admiral Trelvac of the Korvathi. His mandibles clicked with amusement. They send us diplomats and food packs. Now they think themselves warriors? The laughter spread like wildfire, deep rumbles, high chirps, pulsing sonar bursts. Even the holographic walls shimmered with condescension. Earth's representative, Ambassador Lena Voss, stood alone at the circular table's center. Unarmed, unblinking, unshaken. They did not offer numbers, she said evenly. They offered one. One? The laugh this time came from Counselor Jwylar, whose people could crush steel with their breath. Do humans practice death by comedy? Voss reached into her briefcase. With a calm hand, she placed a single photograph on the table. It slid silently to the center, spinning slightly before halting. The laughter stopped. The image showed a dense jungle clearing. At the center, a figure stood, battered armor streaked with blood and mud. In one hand, a blade. Behind him, 3 alien warlords known to have slaughtered thousands, bound and gagged. Voss folded her arms. His name is Lieutenant Commander Jack Riker. Navy SEAL. Special Recon. Call sign Ghost. No one laughed again. The descent into Vironi's 4 was silent. Jack Riker sat alone in the dropship's bay, strapped to a reinforced harness. His rifle rested across his chest, motionless, as the engines vibrated low beneath his boots. No words. No prep team. No backup. Just him. Outside the reinforced glass, Vironi's 4 rotated slowly, its surface a green bruise of thick vegetation and fog-drenched valleys. A jungle moon, rich in natural resources and home to the ancient relic everyone now killed for. The insurgency had started as a tribal feud. Now it was a massacre. The Council had lost 12 elite strike teams, each from a different species. No one returned. Not even bodies. Jack checked his gear with a precision that required no thought. Knife. Tether line. Neuroinjectors. EMP darts. Triggers. 2 flash charges. One last photo, his team, taken before their final op. He tapped it once, then slid it into his vest. The pilot's voice crackled through his comms. Touchdown in 60. Good luck, Commander. If that means anything to you. Riker didn't answer. He stood. The rear ramp hissed open with a gust of humid air, and the scream of alien insects. He stepped off. The jungle swallowed him instantly. Vines as thick as human arms curled from trees that towered like skyscrapers. The light barely broke through. Heat pressed against his skin like wet cloth. The soil sucked at his boots. He moved like vapor. Each footstep chosen. Each breath measured. He became part of the terrain, just one more shadow between the trunks, another heat signature lost in the noise. It wasn't Earth jungle. The foliage pulsed faintly. Some plants exhaled vapor when brushed. In the distance, a predator howled, high-pitched and metallic, followed by silence. He adjusted his visor. Signals flickered, drones scattered in the canopy. Surveillance web. Riker grinned. Lazy, he whispered. A quick motion. He fired a dart from his wrist gauntlet. It struck a hovering drone. Sparks flared, and it dropped like a rock into the undergrowth. He moved again. 20 minutes later, he found what he was looking for, a patrol. 4 soldiers. Bion-skinned. Heavily armored. Talking in clipped, guttural tones. Relaxed. Confident. He watched from a tree unmoving. A snap of movement. One patrolman suddenly stiffened, eyes wide, then fell forward with a blade through the base of his skull. The others turned, screaming, weapons raised. Too late. Riker dropped among them like a phantom. 2 seconds. 3 bodies. No noise louder than a whisper. He dragged them into the brush, covered the tracks. Not a footprint left. Then, radio chatter. This is Echo 4. Lost contact with Outpost 6. A pause. Again? They're vanishing out there. Like something's hunting us. Riker smiled grimly. Good. Back in the council chamber, they watched with uneasy silence. The live drone feed, hacked and routed through a proxy, showed 4 insurgents' corpses arranged in a spiral pattern. A message. Counselor J. Wylar's voice was low. What is he? Voss stood behind them, arms still folded. Human. Night fell on Vironi's 4 like a closing fist. Riker crouched in a high nest, strung between 2 massive limbs. His ears filtered alien sounds, the rhythmic click of distant patrols, the buzz of sensor drones, the slow, eerie chirp of something big nearby. He ate half a ration. Checked his traps. Reviewed enemy movement patterns. Then, for a moment, he paused. He stared at the stars through the canopy. This one's for you, boys, he whispered, tapping the photo in his vest. His eyes hardened. Mission start, successful infiltration. 4 kills. No detection. Phase 2 began at dawn. Dawn came slowly on Vironi's 4, seeping through the thick canopy like diluted fire. Mist coiled between the twisted trunks, and everything breathed, the plants, the soil, even the silence. Jack Riker moved before the sun fully broke the tree-ling. He slid from his perch without a sound, landing on a carpet of moss that muffled his weight. Ahead, just past a jagged ridge of blackstone, was a forward insurgent encampment, his next objective. Through his visor, thermal outlines bloomed. 10 bodies, maybe 12. 2 guards posted. 1 turret. No external motion sensors. They didn't expect anyone to get this close. He checked his loadout. 1 suppressed rifle, blade sheathed across his back, 3 charges. Enough. He advanced through the underbrush, body low, movements fluid. The foliage reached for him as if curious, brushing his shoulders and arms, whispering with strange, sap-slicked leaves. At the edge of the ridge, he stopped. The camp spread below, a crude setup, power cores linked by salvaged conduit lines, crates stacked into makeshift barricades, a comms relay flickering with poor calibration. No discipline. No paranoia. No expectation of ghosts. He exhaled slowly. Then he vanished into the mist. The first guard didn't feel the knife. Just a flick of pressure behind the neck, then darkness. The second saw a shadow move, raised his rifle, too late. Riker's elbow shattered his throat, and the body dropped without a scream. Inside the camp, 2 soldiers argued over a data pad. They didn't notice the flicker of movement as Riker ducked behind the crates. He planted the first charge beneath the generator. Then he moved again, quiet as breath. A sentry turned, half suspicious, and froze. Their eyes met. Riker didn't hesitate. 1 suppressed shot. The body fell back against the tent, slumping like a broken puppet. Within 90 seconds, 5 were dead. The others panicked. Base Echo, we're under attack! I repeat. The call cut short as Riker shot the relay clean through. He stood now, fully visible in the haze, armor scratched, visor gleaming, rifle steady. Who the hell? A soldier raised a plasma launcher. Riker was already in motion. He ducked behind the turret, rolled under a low beam, came up behind the shooter, and drove a blade through his spine. The charge in his other hand activated with a blink. He tossed it toward the core. Boom! The explosion lit the camp in sharp blue fire, collapsing part of the ridge and burying 3 screaming insurgents beneath rubble. Smoke coiled upward like a signal. He was already gone. From the trees, Riker watched the survivors limp away. Bloodied, panicked, calling for airlift support that wouldn't come. He uploaded the camp schematics and troop logs to his satlink. Back in orbit, Council Tech stared in disbelief. 17 insurgents eliminated, the analyst whispered. In under 3 minutes. Ambassador Voss said nothing. She didn't need to. Counselor Trelvac finally leaned forward, mandibles twitching. That wasn't a strike team? No, Voss said quietly. That's still just him. Riker moved deeper into the jungle. The terrain changed, more vertical, cliffs carved by centuries of acid rain and overgrown with phosphorescent vines. Alien insects the size of birds drifted lazily overhead. Everything here wanted to eat you, burn you, or drive you mad. He welcomed it. At the edge of a narrow gorge, he found the remains of a council scout team. 6 bodies stripped of gear, arranged in a grotesque display, warning or trophy, he wasn't sure. He crouched beside the team leader, a cephalon female. Her face was half gone, but her badge was intact. Riker pressed 2 fingers to her cold armor plate. Didn't deserve that, he muttered. He collected what he could, intel chips, fragments of a locator beacon. The rest was unsalvageable. A rustle behind him. He turned. A child. Small, wide-eyed, reptilian features. Unarmed. Trembling. Riker didn't move. The child pointed toward the east, beyond the cliffs. Then it held up a blood-smeared palm. Insurgents. Civilians. A camp nearby. Riker lowered his rifle. Stay out of sight, he said. The kid blinked, then vanished into the foliage. He didn't know what tribe they belonged to. He didn't care. He had a new direction. The eastern ridge was swarming. He climbed above them, through vines that tried to glue him in place, over unstable rock that crumbled beneath his fingers. He reached the summit just before sundown. Below, he saw them, Drex Krall's core unit. Tanks refitted from old council wrecks. Pulse cannons. Dozens of soldiers. A shield array powered by fusion cells. And civilians, at least 50, herded in cages. He zoomed in. Women. Children. Elders. Used as bait. He recorded everything. Marked locations. Transmitted data. Then the sound came, deep and terrible. A voice, fed through giant loudspeakers. I know you watch, human. Riker froze. Krall's voice filled the jungle, warping through ancient speakers and vibrating in his chest. You think you are unseen. You are not. I welcome your presence. Let the galaxy see how Earth dies screaming. The cages were lifted into view. The soldiers raised weapons. Riker's eyes narrowed. No. Not today. He withdrew, fast, silent, angry. Back at his makeshift camp, he stitched a gash on his arm, wrapping it tight. Blood loss minimal. Focus intact. He reviewed the feed again. Krall was baiting him. Riker wasn't afraid of traps. But civilians changed the rules. He wasn't here to be a ghost anymore. He had to send a message. He triggered his SATCOM. Council Command, this is SEAL Ghost 1. Enemy stronghold identified. Civilians in immediate danger. Do I have green light for independent action? The line crackled. Then Voss's voice came through. You're on your own, Commander. Riker clicked off. Good, he whispered, strapping his blade tighter. Because that meant he could do it his way. The moon turned blood red as Vironi's force slipped into eclipse. For most, it was a warning. For Jack Riker, it was cover. From his perch atop the ridge, he mapped the terrain below. Enemy stronghold perimeter, 5 entrances, 2 tunnels, shield array, civilian pens. Patrol patterns repeated every 8 minutes. Gaps appeared at shift changes, 15 seconds at best. Enough for most to die trying. He wasn't most. Riker dropped from the cliff and disappeared into the brush. By midnight he'd sabotaged 2 power cores. No alarms. He moved like a memory, crawling through filth and foliage, sinking beneath stagnant water as patrols passed above, the beam of searchlights slicing just inches from his head. His camo tech shimmered faintly with damp distortion but held. At the 3rd core he paused. Voices. 2 insurgents stood at the base of the reactor, arguing over rationed shares. Riker waited for a beat of silence. Then a rock snapped behind them, not him. They turned. Too slow. He struck, blade through the first throat, elbow crushing the second's trachea. They dropped, twitching. He disabled the core. No light. No hum. No backup. The outer grid would collapse within the hour. In a hollowed-out comms bunker, he found the Rio prize, archived logs. Drex Krall's movement orders, encoded broadcasts, And something worse, evidence the council didn't want to believe. Riker leaned over the cracked console, scrolling fast. Supply manifests. Biological samples. Prisoner lists, names of tribes supposedly evacuated weeks ago. But they weren't relocated. They were processed. Vivisections. Organ harvesting. Neural experiments. Human silence wasn't enough anymore. He activated his uplink and routed the feed to the Council's private archive. No encryption. No code. Just raw, brutal truth. Let them choke on it. Inside the Council chamber, alarms pinged. Counselor J. Wylar opened the live feed. Gasps filled the air as the screen displayed frozen corpses in fluid tanks, some still twitching. "This is forbidden," one delegate muttered. Trelvac hissed. "He breached our secure comm line." Ambassador Voss spoke calmly. "He didn't ask permission. He followed orders, exposed the threat." J. Wylar leaned forward. "He just exposed you, Counselor." Riker burned the rest of the data center before vanishing into the night again. The jungle welcomed him. Just before dawn, Riker reached the village ruins. The fire was still smoldering. Charred corpses lay scattered. Children. Elders. Every structure flattened. Not a tactical strike, an execution. He crouched near the edge of the main square, fingers curling into fists. His heartbeat slowed. His vision tunneled. They did this because they weren't afraid. They still thought humans were cowards and borrowed armor. He inhaled through his nose. Then he moved. Hours passed as he climbed, stalked, placed charges, mapped patterns. His HUD blinked low battery warnings. His armor cracked at the elbow. One leg dragged slightly from the last ambush. He didn't care. He wasn't here to last. He was here to make them remember. Midday. Riker intercepted a caravan, 4 insurgents, 2 hovercarts, and a young alien girl chained to the rear axle. She looked up, eyes dull. The first shot severed the lead driver's spine. The others never got to draw their weapons. He cut the girl loose, handed her water. She didn't speak, only stared. He knelt. "Head toward the ridge. You'll see the cliff. There's a safe path down. Stay low." Still no words, but her hand brushed his before she ran. Not fear. Not thanks. Recognition. She'd heard stories. The strike came 2 hours later. Riker, crouched in a nest of vines, watched as Krall's forces scrambled. Panic flowed through their ranks: sabotage, missing patrols, stolen equipment, fractured comms. A commanding voice boomed through the camp. "Find him! I want his skull!" Riker keyed into their encrypted frequency. He whispered back, "Come get it." Drex Krall stood in the center of the fortress. Tall, reptilian, plated in bone armor forged from previous conquests. His left eye was artificial, glowing with heat-skin precision. He turned toward his communications officer. "Where is he?" The officer swallowed hard. "Everywhere. We've lost contact with outposts 6, 7, and 9. Power grids are collapsing. Traps at our barracks. It's not a strike team. It's just one." Krall's teeth gleamed. "Good." Riker watched the chaos unfold. Then he made his move. 2 charges detonated beneath the barracks. Fires roared through the compound. As soldiers raced to contain the blaze, he slipped through the maintenance tunnel and into the heart of the base. This was where Krall stored the relic, the object that started it all. A shard of tech older than most star systems. Said to hold memory, weapon designs, power beyond comprehension. Riker didn't care. He was here for the prisoners. He reached the holding cages. Smashed the locks. Released 20 captives, then 30. Some limped, some wept, some looked at him like a myth. "Follow the north beacon," he ordered. "Don't stop. Don't look back." One child grabbed his hand. "You're the human ghost?" He didn't answer. He just nodded. Behind him, an alarm sounded. He turned to see Krall entering the chamber. 7 feet tall. Clawed. Snarling. "You!" Riker raised his rifle. Me. Jack Riker didn't blink. Crawl filled the stone corridor like a storm, plated in bone, clawed hands twitching with anticipation, eyes locked on Riker's. His growl rumbled through the floor. You've cost me warriors, systems, and silence, Crawl said, pacing slowly, claws dragging sparks from the wall. And they say humans are weak. Riker's rifle remained steady. Funny. You sound nervous. With a roar, Crawl charged. Riker dropped low, rolled, and fired. 3 rounds slammed into Crawl's side, ricocheting off the reinforced armor. The warlord plowed through crates like paper, backhanding a support beam clean in 2. The ceiling cracked. Riker sprinted through the wreckage, knowing Crawl was right behind him. His HUD flared red, proximity alert screaming. A massive shadow loomed at his back. He slid between 2 consoles, spun, and threw a flash charge. White light blinded the corridor. Crawl howled, smashing wildly. Riker dove into a side tunnel, heart pounding but pace controlled. He wasn't running. He was choosing ground. Somewhere tight. Controlled. He needed a knife fight, not a brawl. He emerged in a lower hangar, abandoned, half-collapsed. Steel catwalks bent under weight. Old dropships rusted in silence. Riker ducked behind an engine block, checked his blade. Serrated. Magnetized grip. Coated in neurotoxin strong enough to paralyze a Trogox in 6 seconds. He heard Crawl's heavy steps enter the bay. You think this ends with you killing me? Crawl shouted. Even if you succeed, the galaxy will forget your name. Riker stood from cover. That's the difference between us. I'm not here to be remembered. He advanced. Crawl charged again, claws slicing air. Riker deflected the first swipe with his forearm guard, ducked under the second, and plunged the blade into Crawl's thigh. The warlord screamed. A backhand caught Riker across the jaw, launching him against a wall. His visor cracked, flooding his vision with static. He wiped the blood from his lip, spit copper. Then he smiled. You hit softer than your propaganda. Crawl snarled and lunged. They crashed through a crate stack, both rolling into the open. Riker stabbed again, this time catching the joint behind Crawl's shoulder. The blade stuck. Crawl grabbed him by the chest plate and slammed him down. Once. Twice. Riker's ribs cracked. He reached for his backup dart, stabbed it into Crawl's neck. The warlord jerked back, stumbling. Foam gathered at his lips, but he shook it off. Your poisons, he hissed, are for insects. Riker rolled to his feet, lungs burning. Lucky for me, he replied. I brought fire too. He triggered the floor charges. The ground split with an explosion that sent both men flying. Dust choked the hangar. Flames licked the broken metal. Sirens wailed in the distance. Riker crawled from the rubble, ears ringing. His arm hung useless. Dislocated. He slammed it back into place with a grunt. Crawl rose too, limping, bleeding black across his chest. The armor was cracked. So was the warlord. You don't quit, Crawl muttered. Nope. Crawl drew a jagged blade from his hip. Then we die here together. Riker shook his head. You do. They clashed in the smoke. Metal struck bone. Blood hit the floor. Crawl's blade sliced across Riker's side, but Riker countered with a knee to the gut and drove a second knife up under Crawl's jaw. The warlord reeled, stabbed, slashed, dazed, but still didn't fall. Riker grabbed a pipe from the wreckage and swung. Once. Twice. The final blow broke Crawl's artificial eye. He dropped. Riker stood over him, chest heaving, blade ready. Crawl coughed black. You were never supposed to matter. Riker knelt. You should have studied harder. And drove the blade into his heart. Outside, chaos ruled. Freed prisoners fled through broken fences, shield grids down, searchlights dark. Insurgents tried to rally, but no orders came. The base's main reactor overloaded from the sabotage. With no one to stabilize it, it was counting down to detonation. Riker limped through the halls, civilians in tow, young, old, wounded, guiding them toward the escape corridor he'd prepped days ago. A soldier reached for him, eyes wide. "He's dead?" Riker didn't stop. "He's dust." By the time the final group reached the ridge, the fortress behind them erupted in a rolling wave of blue fire. The sky lit up. Trees shook. Ash rained like snow. They stood, watching it burn. Riker didn't speak. He sat at the edge of the cliff, pulled the cracked photo of his team from his vest, and stared at it. Then tossed it into the fire below. It was done. Above Virones 4, aboard the Council flagship, silence hung heavy. The delegates watched the feed, insurgents routed, prisoners liberated, warlord dead, base destroyed, all confirmed. HFY turned slowly. "This was one man?" Voss nodded. "That was humanity's response." No one spoke for a full minute. Then, for the first time in Council history, the entire chamber stood in unanimous silence. Not in scorn, but respect. Jack Riker stood alone at the edge of the blast crater. The jungle behind him smoldered. Smoke curled into the sky, blotting out the moon. The fortress, once the center of Drex Crawl's rebellion, was gone. Only scorched steel and twisted wreckage remained. The warlord's body lay buried beneath the rubble, anonymous and unrecognizable. He adjusted his broken visor and turned away. The civilians were safe now. Most had already been picked up by emergency dropships dispatched after his feed reached the Council. It hadn't been approval. It had been panic. The truth left no room for debate. But Riker hadn't waited for them. He never did. By midday, he reached the evac zone, a plateau marked by the Earth emblem, burned into the soil with plasma, a simple symbol, sharp and unmistakable. His beacon flared. The sky cracked as a sleek human gunship descended through the clouds, landing with a low thrum. The ramp dropped. A single officer stood at the top, arms behind his back. "Lieutenant Commander Riker?" Jack looked up, exhausted, covered in blood, dirt, and smoke. "Yeah. I was told you'd be dead." Riker smirked. "Not today." He walked past him and stepped onto the ship. The ramp sealed behind him. Hours later, Riker sat alone in a steel briefing room aboard Artemis, Earth's flagship. His armor lay on the floor, dented and scorched. He hadn't touched the tray of food beside him. He didn't eat after missions. Not until the debrief was done. Not until the weight was off. The door hissed. Ambassador Lena Voss entered, not in formal robes, but field uniform. Her eyes scanned him quickly, and then she nodded. "Report says you neutralized the entire insurgency," she said. "Not the report I wrote," Riker replied. "I just cleared the way. The people finished it. You dismantled an army, executed a warlord, and rescued 87 civilians." Riker leaned forward. "And now you'll have to face what the Council ignored: biological war crimes, black site experimentation. Drex was just the face. He wasn't the architect." Voss didn't flinch. "And yet it was you they feared." He stared at her. "They still do." She walked to the window, staring out at Virones 4. "They expected Earth to send a fleet," she said. "We did," he replied. "A one-man fleet." The Council convened 3 days later. This time, there was no laughter. No sneering. Just tension. The chamber's central dais lit up as Riker entered alone. No guards. No entourage. Just a man who'd shattered their assumptions. Ambassador Voss followed him, her voice sharp and clear. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jack Riker. SEAL. Human. And the reason Virones 4 still stands." Counselor Trelvac adjusted his robes. "He broke half a dozen interspecies protocols. Violated surveillance boundaries. Ignored command chains." Riker spoke before Voss could. "I followed orders. The mission was stop the insurgency. I stopped it." Murmurs. Counselor HFY leaned in. "What drove you to do this alone?" Riker met his gaze. "You said we were cowards." "I disagreed." Silence. Then, a slow nod. Humanity has exceeded expectations. Riker turned to leave, but paused at the threshold. You wanted to know what humans are. We're not the biggest or the strongest. We're not born in armor or raised in war. But we learn fast. We adapt. And when cornered, we don't run. He walked out. No one tried to stop him. A week later, on Earth, a crowd gathered at Arlington Orbital Memorial. Jack stood before a row of polished stone markers, each bearing a name. Names of his old team. The men and women who hadn't made it back from missions like this. Missions no one remembered. His voice was low. Private. It's done, he said. Crawl won't hurt anyone else. Council knows now. They saw. He reached into his jacket and placed a small seal pin at the foot of one grave. You're still with me. Behind him, a young cadet approached cautiously. Commander Riker? He turned. We've started training a new unit, she said. Special Recon. Based on your op. They asked me to find you. To ask if you'd lead it. Riker studied her for a long moment. She couldn't have been more than 22. Bright-eyed. Still untested. You think you're ready for that? I'm not. But I want to be. He looked back at the graves, then at the horizon. All right, he said. Then we start at zero. Across the galaxy, stories began to spread. Not of Earth's fleets, or politics, or technology. But of one man, who came alone, who brought no army, who fought like a ghost and left only silence behind. On distant worlds, children played pretend as Riker the Ghost. On backwater colonies, murals appeared. A lone figure standing before a burning jungle, eyes hard, blade in hand. And in the Council's most private archives, a note was added to Earth's file. Threat level, re-evaluated. Revised designation, Apex Operative Civilization. Do not underestimate.